Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Leaders of Inclusive Childcare podcast series brought to you by CanAssist at the University of Victoria and the Ministry of Education and Childcare of British Columbia. My name is Alicia Garcia, and I am your host for this series. We are recording today's podcast on Lekwungen territory, and I just want to take a moment to express my gratitude for the Lekwungen and Wasanik peoples who have cared for and continue to nurture the land in which we live, work, and play on. And I feel very grateful to be an uninvited guest here. And today's topic is trauma-informed leadership in childcare. And our special guest today is Nikki McCrimmon. Nikki, thank you so much for being here. Before we get into our topic, do you want to share a little bit about yourself and your work?
Yes, absolutely. Hi, everyone. My name is Nikki McCrimmon. I am the Executive Director at Métis Community Services Society of BC, located in Kelowna, British Columbia. I am Métis and First Nations. So on my mother's side, I am from Elizabeth Métis Settlement. And on my father's side, my family's from Big Stone Cree Nation in Treaty 8 territory in Alberta. I grew up on a Métis settlement in my early years and attended an Aboriginal Head Start facility, very much like the one we operate here in Kelowna. My family names are Desjardins, McLeod, Aluk, and Cardinal. And I am a mom of a beautiful 10-year-old little girl and a wife, and have some furry friends at home as well. That's a little about me.
Thank you so much. Just now ready to dive into the topic. I'm so excited for this one today. Let's start with, from a leadership perspective, how would you define trauma-informed care?
Yeah, absolutely. Can be very complex, but I do personally come with a lot of lived experience around the impacts of residential school, intergenerational trauma. My grandmother is a residential school survivor. My mom's a 60 scoop survivor. So in my own family and in my own life, I've had a lot of experience around what trauma can look like. So that lived experience has really shaped who I am as a leader and how I respond to my relationships and building trust in my community. So I think for me, that's what it's all about is meeting people where they're at, meeting families where they're at, children where they're at, and staff where they're at, and listening and coming with curiosity and a non-biased way of thinking when you're working with community and staff. So meeting people where they're at for me is really important.
And I'm wondering too, what's the difference between this idea of treating trauma or almost solving or resolving the trauma versus just being trauma informed?
Yeah, that's a great question because I think that, especially as leaders, we are action-oriented individuals. So we really do want to respond and respond quickly. I often, as soon as I hear a situation or something happening, my wheels start spinning and I want to have action immediately. When we really just need to step back and recognize how trauma shapes behaviors. And what we really need to do is step back and build trust with that person, learn a little bit more about situations, and create a safe environment for folks rather than trying to treat the situation or respond without actually gathering information and understanding situations correctly.
And I think that as leaders, and honestly, the childcare field in general, there's a lot of pressure that we put on ourselves to make resolutions happen. And I think just relieving that pressure that it's not our job to actually resolve the trauma, but just to be informed and work within the trust that we've built. And earlier you had mentioned, signs of trauma. Would you mind speaking a bit more to that?
Absolutely. So when we are dealing with little ones that have trauma going on in the home, our agency is a wraparound service agency. So when we're working with children, we're not just working with the children, we're working with the family as a whole, as much as we absolutely can. So our hope is that we are understanding what's happening in the home outside of our centers as much as possible. That's not always possible until we build that strength-based relationship with the families. But when we are recognizing challenges or behaviors in the center that are challenging for the team or other children, our goal is to really meet the children where they're at that day, spending time, it could be their emotional, could be physical. What is missing, I think, is what we try to find out. And how are we making sure that our program is including children that are not fully present that day. If they're tired, if they're having, a bad morning, they're not eating correctly, or they're showing physical behaviors that may not be safe for the other children in the center. How are we looking at what we're doing in the center that day to respond appropriately and make it safe for the child and safe for the other children? But really, it's just about meeting them where they're at, and it could be they're not wanting to have rest time that day, or they're not wanting to eat what we've put out for them that day, or they're wanting to show more physical behaviors that day. We use a medicine wheel approach in how we respond. So making sure that the child's balanced. So what is missing? Is it physical? Is it emotional? Is it spiritual? Is it mental? And trying to support them where their gaps are or where their needs are that day.
Nice. And I've heard a lot of educators out in the field, and I think they ask questions about, well, what if this child hasn't gone through trauma, or what if they don't know the trauma? And how do we approach children in a way where if we don't know their history, it is still trauma informed?
I think it's about building that relationship and coming with no bias. We shouldn't be judging a situation or even assuming that it's trauma if we don't know. We really just have to really be curious. I say be curious a lot. Really just build a strong, trusting relationship, because as soon as you build that trust and build that relationship, they'll start sharing what their needs really are, or they'll start sharing what's going on at home, or they'll start sharing what's happening. And it could be other things. It may not be trauma, but our goal, I think, is just building that relationship, building trust, and making sure that we are meeting them where they're at.
Right. And it almost seems like there's probably a lot of educators out there that are already practicing trauma-informed care without even realizing it, because they're constantly building those relationships every single day. So let's talk a bit about how to understand the historical context for why children may experience trauma. What are some common reasons why a child might have experienced trauma?
Absolutely. We're an Indigenous entity and we serve Indigenous children and families in our work. And a lot of that comes from historical traumas, intergenerational trauma. We talk about 7 generations of trauma with our families. And so, residential schools, disconnection from their culture, disconnection from their language, and even more recently, the impacts of the child welfare system. We do work very closely with our child welfare system here in Kelowna, and our goal is to prevent the need for the child welfare system in our families' lives, and those impacts when we are seeing involvement from the child welfare system causes a lot of trauma in our families and a lot of fear. There's a lot of fear among our families of systems. And so that creates a lot of segregation from accessing the services that are there for them to support them, really making sure that our families are accessing what they need to stay healthy and safe. The healthcare system, the school system, all of the systems that are in place to support them are often feared among our families. So those create trauma and create segregation and lack of access to community and supports.
So what I'm hearing is there are a lot of children in our care that may have experienced trauma, but we also need to kind of consider the families that have experienced trauma. So I'm wondering, as a leader, how do you approach families who have experienced trauma?
We do so many programs and services at our agency. Number one, of course, building relationship, building trust. What does that look like? We have events where families can come and drop in throughout the week. There's parent and child programming, but a lot of cultural programming, drumming, beading, spending time with elders, and being on the land with elders. So doing land walks and teaching them about the land that we're on and the plants and the medicine that we have access to. So just by doing those sorts of programming, we start to build those relationships and trust with community. And as we build the trust and our relationships, then we're able to learn a little bit more about what the family needs as a whole. Are they having access to their basic needs, safe housing, healthy food? Food is a big one for us. Access to healthy food has been a really big priority for us over the last couple of years, because healthy food is really going to shape how a child comes to the program, and making sure that they have those needs met at home, and just building that sense of belonging to our community is huge. Once we built that sense of belonging and that trust, we are able to learn exactly what they need. Well, maybe not exactly, but as much as we absolutely can. We have family support workers, we have a family preservation worker that work very closely with families to support them in those needs, and in making sure that their basic needs are met outside of our programs.
That's incredible. My goodness. So it sounds like you have a very solid community.
Absolutely. It's a large community and it is very solid. Once you're a part of our community, you feel at home. I say that our agency is like a little Métis settlement on its own. It reminds me of home right when you walk in. And yeah, it's a beautiful place. It's a safe place for our families.
That's so beautiful. I'm really interested in hearing more about making sure these basic needs are met, because I know that there's a lot of barriers for childcare programs and just childcare leaders to ensure that people's basic needs are met. So, how do you ensure that, you have the time and the funding and the ability to provide these basic needs for people in your programs?
I think we're fortunate at our agency because we have the wraparound services attached to that setting. So our Aboriginal Head Start and our after school care programs are built right into our programming that we do. But how it starts with us is we have a referral based approach. So you can refer families to us, or a family can refer themselves to us, and that can be through any way. You can walk in, you can phone, you can fill out something on our website, whatever is easiest for our families. And then they'll meet with our amazing intake worker. Her name is Betty, and she spends a lot of time with the families to learn about them. So just learning about the family, what are their dynamics? What are their gaps? What are their needs? What are their cultural needs, their spiritual needs, everything. So again, using the medicine wheel as our base. How's your mental health? How's your mental wellness? How's your physical wellness? What are gaps? And from there, she walks through all of our programs and services and allows the family to share with us what they would like to be attached to. So, if as she's speaking, she'll say, if you're really struggling with your mental wellness, would you like us to refer you to our mental health counselor, a trauma therapist, play trauma therapist if it's for your child? And she's able to send those referrals directly to our clinical workers or our family support team or our cultural supports. And then they reach out to the family and meet with them and start that relationship building. So we learn right off the bat, as open as they will be. So it depends on if they're willing to share everything. And then we start to refer, and supports will get put into place right away. So if we learn in that initial meeting housing is an issue, they're referred to our housing resource worker, and he will then meet with the family. He will find out more, such as, are you Indigenous, or what sort of housing do you need? How many people are in your family? Do you have animals? And start to help them fill out the applications, as that's a big barrier all on its own. Just those applications can be really difficult to manage for families. So we walk alongside families as much as we can.
I'm just wondering if you have any recommendations for people who are, maybe they are family service providers, so they just have, their own program and they're alone, or leaders who have a very small staff. Do you have any recommendations for them on how to kind of build this sense of community in a place where they maybe don't have as many people?
Yeah, absolutely. That can be so challenging. And we do see that quite often, especially with the little cities around Kelowna or the northern communities where they don't have access to as large scope of resources that we do here. And my recommendation to leaders is to really build partnerships within the community. Can't do it alone. And even our agency, where we offer so much to our community, we still can't meet everyone's needs and we can't do it alone. Our partners are so important. So, really building strong relationships with our community and building resources for our families. So, for example, we have a beautiful center, a beautiful partner called the Family Connection Center here in Kelowna, and they support us with inclusive childcare. They support us with speech and language pathology, behavior interventionists. So, and again, that's stuff that we can't do on our own with a lack of funding and a lack of staffing and those sorts of things. So, building relationships with community and partners, and then having a resource list where families can access easily, and then as much as possible walking alongside the family while they're sending in the referral directly for the family with their consent is huge. Instead of sharing with the family, this is where you go, this is where you access, is can I help you access that? Can I help you by sending in a referral or connecting you to the intake worker? And, even I know it can be challenging in a small setting, but would you like me to invite them to here to meet you when you do drop off for your child? Those are really good ways to make somebody feel safe and comfortable when referring them to other partners.
Just asking for help. I think it's a difficult thing to do, but it's so important. And I think when we think about burnout and just exhaustion, I think that absolutely play a huge role in resolving that. And I really like how you're talking about offering to support the family in any way that meets their needs best. And I know that when we've talked to community before, there are a lot of times where families have trauma around schooling and childcare settings, of course. So, how can we reach out and extend that olive branch to families who are very hesitant to have any sort of connection with childcare programs?
I think we have to be very creative in how we approach the families. And I wouldn't even say necessarily approaching the family. It could be as simple as, we do pancake breakfast every month and we bring them in, and maybe we actually bring in the resources to be set up that day. What I always say is, when as much as we can bring our partners in to our setting, the better. When we have created that safe place for our families, they're going to feel more comfortable when we bring things to them in that safe place to start, and then slowly have them attend our partners' spaces, or even better, having our partners attend in their home as much as possible. So I think just being really creative and not even going to a family and say, I think you may benefit from this program. No, like bring it to them in a setting where they're already going to be there, and in a way where they get to choose if they're going to access that information. Like them making that decision for themselves is really important. Not making the assumption. When we make it easily and readily available to the families, then I think it's going to be more easily accessible for them, rather than feeling like they're judging me or they're making assumptions on what my needs are. So really making it just accessible to them to access without giving it to them and not having that tough conversation around what they might need.
Allowing them to keep that autonomy over their own choices. And I love that you invite them for pancake breakfast. I just think that's so sweet. And I feel like giving them a space to come into the program where it's not really formal and you're not necessarily there to talk about their child. You're just there to get to know them and to build community. I think that is such an important thing, to just build the relationships between families even too. They need each other just as much as we need them. That's so important.
Yeah, it's so wonderful when you get to see the family spending time together and just having conversations, realizing that they're struggling with the same barriers, they're struggling with the same systems, and we're all really a lot alike when you're spending time with one another, and building that community is so important. And seeing the families become close and building relationships and friendships is beautiful.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in today for part 1. Part 2 of Trauma-Informed Care with Nikki will be available this Friday. Thank you for your support, and take care.